We're obviously selling ourselves, we're selling a service. So it's really about the psychology of sales. So when we have a potential client and I'm like, oh, that's a high D, so quite a dominant person, that would work with me. I can mirror that very neatly.
When you're a woman and you're running a business and you are visibly pregnant, people looking at you differently, potentially not wanting to instruct you.
My identity was running a business and playing lots of tennis. And then I was a mother. It really scared me.
Welcome to the next episode of Navigating, a podcast with me, Bertie Russell. This episode, we are honoured to have Hannah Aykroyd, Managing Director and Founder of Aykroyd and Co. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
You are one of the most well-regarded buying agents in the market from our perspective. We love working with you and your team. And we're really grateful that you're here to share some of your stories with us.
Thanks.
I would love to start with how you started the business and where that all came from, because I actually don't know that story.
Don't know the full story.
I don't.
I was in a really privileged position. I was a director for a leading property agency, and we were acquiring some of the biggest properties in the market. And the MDs were then poached by a big corporate. And I had 6 weeks to make a decision. Did I go and join someone else? Did I go and set up my own firm? And that just seemed a really obvious decision. It was really easy. So I quickly sort of scrambled to, I was actually then going off skiing the following week, which is really unhelpful timing. So I was out there in Colorado, sort of setting up the company on Company's House, trying to get going with a website, doing all the regulations that you need to ensure that are in place right from the beginning. Wow. So getting all the admin done. And then at that 6 week point, I was really lucky. We sort of pre-agreed the clients that I was able to take with me on obviously a fee split, and we were off. So we exchanged on something in our first week of trading.
Did you really?
Yeah, so it was just incredible.
So they left and you started a separate business, but some of the remnants of the business you were doing together remained with you.
Yes. Yeah. So I was able to kind of keep those clients, and one of the team joined me. I kept the office and I actually hired a PA in that first month. She's still with me 6.5 years later.
Wow.
And she's been incredible, actually, great support. And so it was an incredible journey right from the beginning. And I just lived and breathed Aykroyd and Co for the first, certainly 6 months. I didn't really have a social life. I was working, I was in the office sort of 7:30, back at 11, midnight, working every single weekend. It was nuts. It really was. But it really put us in good stead. We smashed that first year, and it was really sort of 6 months in, I felt I then had the confidence to engage with a PR team. And really start to make a bit of noise around what we were doing and what we'd already achieved, because there's slight of imposter syndrome, I think, when you set up a business. And so that was kind of good timing at that point, and we haven't looked back.
Amazing.
So when I set up Aykroyd and Co, it was with a few key principles. We're fully independent, which I think is so important. Like yourselves, there's no conflict in the market whatsoever. We only sit by side, which I think is fundamental, because again, there's no conflict whatsoever. So when we have clients who are looking to sell a property, we obviously often introduce them to yourselves. You even sold my last property and did a great job.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for trusting us. That's always quite a scary thing.
Yes. We did an excellent job, actually. So that was good. Got a good price, so thank you. But it's just forming those relationships with the selling agents by ensuring that we're not treading on your toes, by introducing our very important clients over to you, and introducing them to you. Yeah.
And I think probably it's important for everyone to know that there are quite a lot of conflicts with, quite a lot of people do both.
Yes.
And there are quite a lot of companies that are associated with other companies that do both.
Yes.
And so, I mean, we are an estate agent. We sell properties. We love the advisory side that you're talking about as well, from a sell side, which I think probably puts us, I don't know, it's slightly unusual. Sort of long-term, in-depth knowledge, advisory stuff. But when you have a conflict, or whether you've got both sides, it's difficult for you to give truly independent advice, isn't it?
So we're very careful about who we're acting for.
It must be difficult to manage that.
It's really difficult because, of course, you don't quite know how long a search is going to take. And so I think really over time, we've been a lot more careful about who we are working with. And obviously, it's about sort of filling gaps within the sort of search portfolio. We're always super busy in Notting Hill and RBKC generally. And it's those sort of bigger house searches where, the budget could be sort of 10 to 15 or 10 to 20. And
it's quite broad.
So it's quite broad, and it can sometimes cover more than one postcode. So then you're sort of taking out that whole sort of search space really for another potential client. So you really want to be working with very focused clients and who are really listening to your advice.
And for people that aren't aware, because I think the buying agency, the history of a buying agency is not as long as the history of a selling agency.
It's true.
And the global understanding of a buying agency, I'd be interested to see your take, because you'll know much more about it than me. But I know in the US, the seller pays, I think this might have just changed, but the seller pays a fee that goes to the selling agent and the buying agent. So can you explain a bit more about
how the fees work?
Well, how it works, why there's become, it never existed to have, but there was never a buying agency. I don't know how many years ago, 20, 30 years ago, definitely not. And sort of what the purpose of a buying agent is, and what value you add to a buyer, and for people that don't understand why you would use a buying agent.
I mean, firstly, I think in the US, and as you say, I think it has just changed, but there's like a total conflict of interest. I think it's so important that each client pays their advisor the fee, and that's the crucial difference really between us and in the US. As buying agents, obviously the buyer is paying our fee, and we are representing them throughout the entire process. And everyone sort of thinks it's just finding a property, but it is so much more than that. About 80% of what we're acquiring is off market. And actually that's
really that much.
Yeah, it's huge.
Wow.
And that space is getting so much bigger year on year. There's been so many fundamental changes within the property market, as you well know, with a lot of the big corporates sadly sort of probably losing a lot of key individuals who've then gone on to set up smaller firms. So that off-market space has just grown exponentially.
And maybe got more confusing as well from a buyer's perspective.
Totally.
There's less obvious places to go. You have to know all the different places.
You really do. Sort of so often we will buy a really incredible house through an agent who might sell 2 or 3 properties a year through their black book, and that is it. And they don't even really look to sell that much more. They're very happy with that, but they're pretty special. And those agents tend to be sort of further down their career, and it's at a decent value as well. So you really need to be covering a lot of ground as a buying agent, and you just cannot hope to do that as a buyer. So I think it's ensuring that our clients are covering the entire market. And we can't even just rely on accessing properties through selling agents. It's also through private bankers, through lawyers, through architects, through interior designers, developers as well, maybe getting early access on something. So, we as a team, we're just on the ground constantly, just, ensuring that we're sort of fully tapped in and we've got access to everything. It's also a big part of it is pricing. As a buyer, like, how do you know what the price is of something? And you've got no data really to rely on. And, we obviously, both of us are living and breathing LumRes, this property professionals database. And we're super lucky in London that is a very, very good tool for us. But, you're obviously finding data as well through picking up the phone where potentially a transaction hasn't gone on to LumRes, and you're just able to sort of build that data set that a buyer, again, just wouldn't be able to do themselves. And it's giving clarity on pricing and picking out comparables which really work and weaving that all into the negotiations. And a big part of our role as well is bringing in interior designers, architects, listed building specialists, the whole
thing.
Yes.
You've recently bought a house, and I hope, well, you probably employed yourself to do the fantastic buying agency work.
Yes.
But it is, I've moved now 11 times in 15 years, and it is stressful. And actually recently we bought a house in the countryside. I've got no idea about the countryside. I would think I'm half decent at property in general, but when you go to a different area, prices, agents, different expectations on price, cost of works, speed of works, listed buildings, like everything, there's a lot. And I suppose, do you think at different price brackets you have different value you can offer to people? With it off market, I suppose as you get higher up in the market, less things are on Rightmove, more things are there. It's more nuanced, maybe. Do you think you can add more value at the higher end, or do you think there's still value for your clients at a lower price point as well? Probably different value that you offer.
Different value, but a lot of the same crossover. I think you're right. Obviously, the higher the value of the property, the less likely it's going to be on the open market. Yeah. And we're under offer on a very large house in Notting Hill at the moment on a key road, and that was a one-off viewing, and we'd actually got in there because it was available for rent, and we just managed to sort of see. But even on the rental side, it was completely off market. So it's I think we can add value though across the full price sort of bracket.
People have different constraints. If you're from the US and you're trying to buy your daughter a flat here for a student, whatever, you haven't got time. You don't know the area. That might be at 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, or you might be in London and know property, but don't have the expertise and the connections to find these off-market things. So I suppose there's different needs for different people.
Oh, completely. We always say we're here to save clients time, money, and to also hopefully make the process as enjoyable as possible. That
can be stressful.
It really can. We all know that buying property is a highly emotive experience, and hopefully by having us on board, we kind of shield the clients from a lot of that. Yeah. And having those sort of offline conversations with the selling agent who we hopefully know well and trust makes such a huge difference to making the whole process seamless and smooth, and hopefully quicker as well.
Yeah, I'm interested to ask you this thing that we deal with, as the prices get higher, we deal with more and more buying agents. And for us, we love dealing with buying agents because the buyers have been pre-qualified. They've got their mortgage ready, they've got their AML ready, they've got an interior designer or an architect or a builder ready to give quotes, and they are further down their journey of being ready to buy something. And it's really lovely building relationships with people with, obviously on different sides, and we're really protective of our clients, but we're still trying to meet in the middle somewhere. Is there, as an agent, having not done the buying agency side, what are the things that agents can do to make your life easier, or a more enjoyable process for the client? Or what are things you come up against with agents that could be better?
Good question.
I'm sure there are lots of things. And you probably need to be careful about what you say now.
I don't know, exactly. I'm really not saying just saying this, but we have an excellent relationship with all of your teams. So we really enjoy working with you guys.
Yeah, we enjoy working with your team.
Well, thank you. And I think for us, it's just ensuring that we really are hearing about everything first. I always think that there should just be even a couple of days lag between sending it out to buying agents, picking up the phone to buying agents, and sending it to sort of just buyers on your list. Yeah. So that'd be one key thing, just to ensure that we're protecting our position a little bit better. But really, because of the great relationship we've got with you and other key agents in the market, we should be aware of, even when you're going out to value properties, and tracking things and adding that to our list, so we sort of know exactly what's going on. So a lot of that comes down to communication
and that relationship strength and trust.
100%. And I think that actually is where working as a team from our side has to help us, because there are 4 buying agents within the market, not just one, and so we're getting better traction on the back of that, and people really respect us and want to hopefully do deals with us, which is great, and our clients benefit from that, of course.
Yeah.
So I think it's that sort of slight early access, really good communication, and we're pretty straight when we're negotiating. I personally, unless there's a good reason, like to negotiate quite quickly on behalf of clients. So it's just being really available, from your side, which your team always are, to be fair. But just and maybe just having those sort of really helpful offline conversations to ensure that we can get a deal done. Yeah. Because as you say, when buying agents are in the market on behalf of a retained client, they mean business.
Serious.
We really, we don't work with that many clients. To give you an idea, each of the team has capacity to work with 6 clients at any one time. So we are doing everything we can to find that right property, to negotiate well, so the client's happy, but everyone feels that there's something in it for them, which is so important. And our job is obviously stripping out any emotion during that whole process. It's you and I working together to ensure that happens. And then, of course, just getting it through safely to exchange and completion. And we all know that during the conveyancing process, there is always something that comes up or in the survey, and it's how you manage that.
Yeah.
I
think that those relationships that we all build up as agents, buying agents, that is the longer I've been doing it, and I'm sure it's the same with you. Those relationships are so key to those things, and the communication. The more you can preempt something or warn someone about something. I think buyers and sellers, they just feel frustrated if something crops up that they're like, come on, you knew that was going to come up. Why haven't you told us about it? Or you let it go 2 or 3 days longer than you should have done. Or
that's so.
It is quite simple, isn't it? But it takes quite a long time to learn.
It's true.
What simple is.
What simple is, exactly. And I think another big thing why selling agents should really be trying to work with buying agents wherever they can is hardly any purchases will fall out of bed for us. There has to be a very, very good reason. Maybe that the roof is about to cave in that we weren't expecting. So, but then again, for instance, if a bad survey comes up with the house, you just renegotiate on the back of that. If it's still in good order and you're happy enough, there's always a way around something. Yeah. There is a solution. I think that's the point. If a client of ours wants to buy a property and we still think, knowing more of the facts, that they should be buying that property, we will make it happen. Yeah. I mean, even actually, which has just been a game changer. So Tom ended up suggesting this incredible business coach who I've been working with now since last January.
Brilliant.
And that has been amazing. He's now actually working with my husband's business as well. And I've actually just introduced him to an interior design team. So he is phenomenal. And I just felt that we were lacking something within the team in terms of really knowing maybe who we are as people, who each other are, how can we improve our processes. We're obviously selling ourselves. We're selling a service. We're not selling a product like you are. So it's really about the psychology of sales, about winning the client and really, selling ourselves as best we can. And he has been sort of transformational with that. It just means it's also really helpful that we really understand who we're working with. So when we have a potential client and I'm like, oh, that's a high D, so quite a dominant person. Well, that would work with me. I can mirror that very neatly. And there's someone else in the team that I probably pull in on the pitch and you've got more chance of winning it. And it's just being a lot more structured about how you are positioning the team.
So you go into that kind of detail when you...
Oh, yeah.
How do you say, for anyone who doesn't know, high D is it personality or character?
It's just a very sort of dominant... I think Donald Trump in the extreme, of course, but, very dominant person, very sort of short, sharp. A lot of finance guys tend to be a high D, sort of into the detail to a point, but it's just high level. We'll make a very quick decision on something.
And how do you find that? Are you trying to find that out before you go on the pitch?
As much as you can. Sometimes you've had an initial call, and then you're...
Go, oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a high D. Yeah, like my husband. So I deal with that at home, and it works well. So very accustomed to it. And then, when we're actually meeting them in person, then I know kind of who to bring with me.
That's amazing. So one of the things we talk about a lot, and the thing that I'm fascinated in, and actually I've been blown away by being a man. I've speaking to you about having kids has put me in a hugely privileged position being a man. But I struggle with trying to be a good dad, trying to be a good husband, business, work stuff, trying to find the balance between all of that. And I know that we all do. But I remember you telling me that you had about 2 hours off after giving birth and you're back straight away. I mean, what's it like being a mum and a business owner, and you're very ambitious, and how do you handle it?
I mean, I look back at the last 6.5 years and I just think, wow, just mad, absolutely mad, really. I ended up falling pregnant 3 months into having set up the business.
Oh, wow, was that early?
Which was not planned. I mean, we were obviously thrilled and we were married already, but no, who does that? So I went to full term pretty much for the 1-year anniversary of having set up the business. It was crazy.
Was that your greatest challenge in the first year? Or do you think there were other business stuff that...
I just kept going. I literally kept going.
That's wild.
Yeah, I was just eating paninis and I just kept going, just carb loaded. And I remember just feeling so terrible in so many meetings. And yeah, just kind of have to just push on through. And so everyone was like, so when are you going to just sort of stop before the baby arrives? And I really wasn't. I was actually in One Hyde Park showing a client a property for the second time. And I then went back and I interviewed someone because I was going to take someone on to sort of, to start in a few months' time. And then I went into labour, no surprise, like 4 hours later. So, it's ridiculous. And so I'm there at home and, still doing all these emails, just trying to sort of manage the business so I could just sort of switch off and have the child. And then I just acquired a large development in Regent's Park for a Hong Kong client. It was 5 Muse houses, apartment block of 9, and he'd flown in to see this development that we'd just acquired. So I had to be at this meeting. So I'm there with my 2-week-old baby, and thankfully one of the team who was incredible, Sophie, who very sweetly was looking after my baby whilst I was running this sort of meeting with sort of 8 people. I could barely think. I was so tired, and I would never put myself through that now. I really wouldn't.
Then you did it again.
And then I did it again. Yeah, I know. And so I didn't really take a mat leave. I then had another child 17 months later, and that's enough. I've had 2. That's more than enough. And here I am. But in all honesty, it's been a big journey for me this year. So the boys are now sort of 4 and 5, and you're aware as well that I've had some serious health challenges, and I was critically ill in hospital over Christmas, and the first quarter of this year was super tough for me, and the team have been incredible. And that's when you go through something like that, having such an incredible team that I've been able to rely on has just shown me that they are absolutely the right people that I've chosen so well, and I feel really, really lucky to have them. But it has forced me to kind of slow down a little bit, which I probably needed. I was on this, this hamster wheel that was just going faster and faster and faster. I couldn't get off it, and I sort of nosedived. And
how are you managing? Are you fully better now?
It's still work in progress. But I'm feeling way better. I'm back playing tennis, and
that's important.
It's so important. That honestly, tennis for me is the only thing I do really that I switch off completely. And
what are the things that you would love to be doing every week that would re-energize you?
Well, I think firstly, it's just trying to get over the guilt. I think that's so important. And I think also for me and for any business leader, you are thinking about the business all the time. Even in the bath. I have a bath. I'm always thinking about the business. You don't switch off. And so I think it's so important to carve out time during the working week if you need to. If that's the time that you have, perhaps away from family, you need to block out that time for yoga or running or, tennis, whatever it happens to be, that gives you that escapism, because it's not a 9 to 5 job for us. It's 24/7 really in a lot of ways. And I just don't feel guilty, whereas before I did. And I wasn't playing as much tennis, obviously with having the children, and I kept getting injured. And now it's just, also as we're getting older, we need to look after ourselves more in terms of diet. Sleep is critical. Yeah. Sleep is critical. We've spent a lot of time talking about this as well. With lack of sleep drives you to slightly, it drives you mad. And it's creating balance. There's no right or wrong answer. No.
I think that the sort of being able to switch off the things that, so for me, reading something that I really get sort of, I don't know, I sort of get lost in. So I've been reading some crazy book about dreams at the moment. It's the Korean bestseller.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's bonkers. And
I'll need to read that.
I've read it in about a week, and my dreams have been wild.
On the back of reading that book?
Awesome.
I love that.
But I completely switch off, and I go into another planet. And so yeah, for me, reading, real tennis, running. I actually found a love of gardening. I think I'm just getting older.
Gardening. No, I love gardening too. I really do. It is so satisfying to plant something and to see it grow.
Yeah.
And it's really sweet. I've got the boys into it as well. Really? So yeah,
the kids definitely. I mean, I always thought it was going to be a slightly selfish thing for me to go out and clip this and plant that. And our kids just love it. They'll spend all day out with us, sort of tinkering in the garden. And
so positive.
Yeah. One of the things I really want to ask you before I forget, and since you've been chatting about your boys, one of the things that probably most affected me hearing on our business dinners that you were speaking about was and I don't know whether it was you or the other lady there, who I don't know whether we say names or not, but and I'm not a woman. So when you're a woman and you're running a business and you are visibly pregnant, I heard some stuff, and I don't know whether it was from you, but it was people looking at you differently, and people potentially not wanting to instruct you because they thought you might be off or not as present, not as involved post-birth. Yeah. And I remember there had been talks about, hiding it and, I'm not pregnant and I can still do it. And the sort of expectation that, my wife had 9 months to a year off for all 3 kids of ours. And it was an amazing time. It was really important. It was a really confusing time. It was wild. And I get the impression that you felt pressured not to do that. And I feel really sad for you that society allowed that to happen.
I know.
Am I right in that?
Yeah, completely. Yeah. It's, I suppose firstly it was, I ended up, when I was pregnant, the first time round, I ended up buying this really large coat, big black coat, bit of a duvet of a coat, to hide my growing bump.
Did you?
Yeah. And so, I'd keep it on and I'd be sweltering and going around even on property tours, and I'd be sort of 5-6 months pregnant. And at the end of the tour, the clients still wouldn't know I was pregnant.
And it should be something to shout about.
And it should be something to celebrate. But I was so fearful, particularly with my first child, will my sort of business completely fold? How's it going to keep going if I'm not there? And of course, then I was there because, I hadn't gone anywhere and I was still fully involved in everything. I was still doing all the potential client calls as well. After those first 2 weeks and after the first baby, when you really can't even think, you're so sleep deprived and hormones have kicked in, but you just do it because you're on autopilot. And the baby, the business was still so new that I was just so focused on making sure it was a success and it wouldn't fall apart. And I do now think, goodness, how did I really not take, even 6 months off? But I just didn't feel I could. No. The business was just too young.
Do you think there's something you would do differently next time, or that people should? I suppose you'd probably. I can't really see another alternative at this stage.
I don't think so.
Particularly your business at that stage
Yeah, I did have two in the team plus my PA already. It probably was me. Probably I should have just let go. I should have let go more. I think that's it. And I've learned that over time. So that's been a really big development for me personally. And but I wasn't really prepared to do that at that time. So
no, I get that.
And because also, my identity was running a business and playing lots of tennis. And then I was a mother or about to be a mother, and it really scared me.
It's scary.
It is scary. Yeah, a legitimate reason. Yeah.
Well, I suppose the unknown is scary, and I think we had a chat about this last time we met up. It's sort of the greatest thing that ever happens to you having kids, but it is scary, and it is, it's not easy.
It's not easy.
But it challenges you to grow and to see things from a different perspective and
it really
be
does.
a better person, actually, I think.
And less selfish as well. It's been an incredible way to develop as a human, I think, to have children. And it can feel quite intense when you've got so many dependents on you, and whether that's at home and obviously within the business, but just got to rise above it, don't you?
Just a parent all round.
Exactly.
Business and family parent.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, actually, I've got a wonderful consultant who I really rely on, and she's been incredible. I've worked with her now for about 3 years.
What does she do?
And she's been a marketing consultant for me, but when we overhauled the website, when we overhauled, when we created a CRM system and overhauled then all the marketing materials, she was really heavily involved in that. But the reason for mentioning her is that whenever I catch up with her, she's kind of, like a mum figure as well. Yeah. And she's so wonderful, really warm, and she's been a lovely person to kind of rely on. And nice. I definitely don't have to parent her. It's the other way around.
Yeah,
it's a really special relationship.
I suppose that's sort of mental kind of position.
It is. And then I have a more sort of formal mentor in a boss of mine from really kind of my first property job, actually, in London. And he was very senior for working for one of the big corporates on the board. And he now sits sort of, as my mentor, and I sit down with him quarterly and talk through the management pack after I've had the board meeting. So I sort of take him out for a nice lunch, and he gives me some pearls of wisdom. But he's been incredible. He came to my wedding. He's a very, very special man. Yeah.
How do you find a mentor in a more formal way like that?
Well,
did it just happen by sort of by relationship development?
It really did. We've always been really close, and I was working for him, and he kind of really encouraged me to sort of pursue my career, and has always been incredibly supportive. And it was after I'd set up Aykroyd and Co, I sort of felt like I didn't really have anyone to lean on at all, and I would sort of reach out to him. We'd have this sort of occasional lunch a couple of times a year, and we sort of formalized it a little bit more after that. And so it's now every quarter, it's in the diary, and I really look forward to spending time with him. He's been amazing.
You feel like a sort of child.
Yeah, I know.
Rather than a parent.
Yes, it's really a lovely feeling. Yes. Do you have anyone like that?
I mean, we're very lucky that we've got so many family members.
Yes.
And we've all been working together for such a long time. And obviously my dad's been in the industry for 50 years.
He's a bit of a legend, your dad.
He's a legend.
Yes.
And he's so we're very lucky we've got that to sort of fall back on and to rely on. And I completely took that for granted, having not spoken to lots of people about what it's like to lead a business. So that we're really lucky with. And then there are a couple of people who just, a bit like your more formal mentor, I don't have any formal mentor, but I've got a couple of people who have just been amazingly kind and taken an interest and don't want anything from it. I think they probably get something from it, just being kind and offering help and watching a journey. And that's really lovely. And particularly non-family, because family, you don't expect it, but that's kind of the role of family. You're there to support each other. But for someone else that's not family and not, to actually take an interest is really great.
It really is. Yeah, it's a very special relationship. And I mean, at some point, I'd love to mentor someone who's sort of setting out within the property industry. not that it needs to be, but I'd love to help a young woman coming through. It's good to see there are more sort of female founders out there.
More, aren't there?
There are more, still lacking for sure. Yes, I mean historically property has been quite male dominated, but then I think that's across most industries, and unfortunately there are a lot of women who just have to come out of work because of having children.
And that challenge is real.
It really is.
It doesn't seem to be a sort of easy solution.
I find it so frustrating though, just the amount of great friends who are forced to work part-time, or even when they don't want to, or to actually step back completely and be working and be looking after the children full-time because that makes more sense financially.
It's very tough being a mum.
I mean, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it full time. So I always say to all my friends, I'm like, massive respect to you, but I find it frustrating that they have to make the choice. If they want to, then hats off to them. And it's the most incredible role you could ever fulfill.
But I think it's just difficult for women with kids. Like it's, there's this expectation that you're going to be even if you're the breadwinner financially, you're still the mum. You're still really often the one who's, emotionally available for the kids and doing drop-offs and organising when they're sick and all that type of stuff. And then there's societal pressure to go out and earn a living and be proactive and get a job and, make something of yourself sort of career-wise. And I've got lots of girlfriends who are really stuck between those things, trying to make it all work, feeling guilty they're not there for pick-up and not doing the reading in the morning with the kids. It's really tough.
Win.
Mum guilt.
A total mum guilt. It's so hard. I really do struggle with that.
It's great that there is more. I mean, the reason why that exists, I think, is there is definitely more availability for women to be in the workplace and make a success of a career. I've got to be so careful with all this I'm saying. But we're at a point where, it's kind of everything's expected. So you can't. And so everyone's doing everything. And I mean, me and my wife I'm super, what I'm like. I'm not a high D. I don't know what it is. In my world, it's a blue. Very organised, very analytical. And, and my wife hates me for it, but we do a lot of sort of roles and responsibilities. It's like, well, who's doing, it's so hectic. You sort of like, well, the traditional idea of, well, you do that and I do this is completely out the window. So you've really got to figure out, I love cooking, so I'll do the cooking on the weekend, and you love doing this, so you do that. And
that's so organised.
Well,
we've joked about this before.
It sounds more organised, but
it's good. I think communication though underpins any successful relationship. Yeah. It really does, and and also whether some weeks you're drowning in work or you're just not feeling that great and you just need more input from your partner. And we're quite good on the weekends when we stay in London that we tend to have a good sort of 2 hours sort of sleep on the weekend in the day, both of us, just to catch up. And you really need to. Otherwise you're just sort of...
I'm going to take that.
Just exhausted, yeah.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, for sure. A friend of mine recently...
I'm not quite sure how we're going to do it. I'll figure that out.
But it's recharging, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily enough just to read a book. I think you need to just catch up and sleep. We're just constantly on the go.
Yeah. Well, I think we could chat for another 2 hours about
easily
parenting. But to make sure everyone else isn't too... Well, I mean, we could come back for round 2 on parenting. But thank you so much. Yeah, it's been really interesting. I mean, doing these are fascinating because I know a lot about your business and we do a lot of work together. So asking you questions about the buying agency side is more for people watching and listening. Fascinating to understand how it all started, which I did know, but didn't know quite the details. But the balance and the being a mum and the business stuff, it's so tough and we're all in the same boat, and well done for doing what you're doing. And thank you for sharing.
Wow, so kind. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed that.
Pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you.